Have you ever wondered why life often falls into place the moment you stop trying to force it? That quiet shift when you loosen your grip, stop obsessing over the outcome, and somehow, things just align. Maybe it happened when you lost a job and it felt like everything was collapsing, only to discover months later that it opened the door to something far greater. Or perhaps it was heartbreak, the kind that crushes your spirit. You were sure you'd never feel whole again, but somehow, with time and distance, you didn't just recover, you evolved. Stronger, wiser, clearer. This is not coincidence. The Stoics knew this well. Life has its own rhythm, a natural flow that cannot be mastered through brute force. They saw fate not as something to conquer, but as a current to be skillfully navigated. You don't resist the river. You learn to row with it, and when you do, it takes you places your plans never could. Faith, they believed, is one of the most powerful forces we can cultivate, not just faith in some distant universe, but faith in ourselves, in our ability to adapt, to rise, to rebuild. It is the quiet force that keeps us grounded when everything else is falling apart. And here's the paradox. The more you grasp, the more it slips. The more you boast, the less you're given. It's as if the universe responds best not to demands, but to humility. The Stoics didn't call this karma. They called it the nature of fate. A force that may not give you what you want, but will always, in time, give you exactly what you need. Even the kindest, most disciplined souls, those who live with integrity and grace, are not immune to misfortune. But the difference lies in what they do next. They don't shrink. They don't rage at the sky. They press on. And in doing so, they often find that beyond the darkest clouds waits the brightest sun. But don't mistake patience for passivity, faith for inaction. The Stoics never sat still waiting for miracles. They acted with purpose, but they released their expectations. They did the work and let go of the results. And more often than not, that's when the miracles came. Think about it. How many times have you searched endlessly for something only to find it the moment you stopped looking? That's not luck. That's alignment. It's what happens when you create space, when you stop chasing and start trusting. Letting go isn't giving up. It's giving in to something wiser. It's creating the stillness that allows the right things to find you. The Stoics weren't waiting passively. They were living purposefully, faithfully, calmly. And from that quiet strength, they discovered something most people never do: peace. Part 1. Trust the flow of fate. Faith isn't just a spiritual concept or a hopeful wish. It's a daily practice. Faith in the process. Faith in yourself. And perhaps most importantly, faith that life, in all its twists and turns, will eventually bring you where you're meant to be. This isn't mere philosophy, it's a way of living deeply aligned with nature, with truth, and with the wisdom of the Stoics. So today, let us begin this journey not as a lecture, but as a reminder. A reminder to stop resisting and start trusting. Chapter 1. The nature of fate and the flow of life. To the Stoics, fate wasn't something cold or cruel. It was a force to be understood, respected, not feared. Imagine life as a vast, winding river. Some people spend their lives fighting against the current, exhausting themselves trying to swim upstream. Others choose to let go not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, learning to trust the bends, the rushes, and the stillness of the water. Which path do you think leads to true peace? Marcus Aurelius, a master of this wisdom, once said, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." He wasn't promoting resignation. He was calling us to live with full, presence-full-hearted acceptance, no passive surrender, but courageous engagement. When we resist life, we suffer. That resistance turns every twist into turmoil. But when we let life unfold, we create space for peace, for meaning, for unexpected beauty. Think for a moment, when was the last time something didn't go your way? A job opportunity vanished. A relationship ended. A dream slipped through your fingers. At the time, you may have felt lost, even broken. But now, in hindsight, didn't that detour lead you somewhere better? Sometimes what we think we need is not what life knows we truly need. The Stoics remind us what we lose is not always a punishment. It's often a redirection. What if that closed door was just the beginning of a better path? What if disappointment is simply a seed for something more profound? This trust isn't passive. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means engaging with life, but without attachment to the outcome. When we stop fixating on what we've lost and begin focusing on what might emerge, we become powerful. We begin to grow. We begin to see that even in failure, there's formation. Even in pain, there's preparation. So the next time your plans fall apart, ask yourself, what if this isn't a setback but a stepping stone? What if life is nudging you forward, not pulling you down? The Stoics would say, have faith. Everything arrives in its time. Here are some practical Stoic tools to anchor that mindset. 1. Practice detachment. Remind yourself that control is often an illusion. We don't control outcomes. We only control our reactions. The next time something unexpected happens, pause, breathe, and whisper to yourself, this is not the end. It's just a redirection. 2. Practice daily gratitude. Each evening, write down 3 things that didn't go your way but still brought you something valuable. A delay that led to discovery. A loss that uncovered strength. This habit reveals just how often life is quietly conspiring in your favor. 3. Embrace the Stoic pause. Before reacting to any setback, stop and ask, is this within my control? If it is, act with wisdom. If it isn't, trellis it with grace. This one question alone can quiet the mind and protect your peace. And with that, we arrive naturally at the next pillar in the Stoic path, power of humility. Chapter 2. The silent strength of humility. What if the quietest person in the room was actually the strongest? The Stoics knew that humility isn't weakness. In fact, it might just be one of the most misunderstood strengths of all. It's not the loud voice that commands a room, nor the spotlight that measures one's greatness. It's the steady presence, the self-assured silence, the willingness to listen, to learn, and to let the truth speak louder than ego ever could. Epictetus, once a slave, later a teacher of emperors, said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Pride, to the Stoics, was a barrier, a blinding fog. It shuts the door to growth, because when you're convinced you've arrived, you stop walking. When you think you've mastered life, life will soon humble you. True strength, the Stoics believed, comes from being a student. Always. From recognizing that every single day offers a new lesson, a deeper understanding, and a fresh opportunity to grow. Humility isn't about shrinking yourself. It's about expanding your perspective. And it's in those quiet, uncelebrated moments, the acts of kindness no one sees, the decisions made without applause, the selfless choices, that real power begins to form. Not the kind that dominates or controls, but the kind that endures. History has shown us again and again, the leaders who leave the deepest legacy are not always the ones who speak the loudest. They're the ones who move with intention, lead by example, and walk through life without needing validation. Their strength lies not in being noticed, but in being grounded. The Stoics lived this truth. Humility wasn't weakness to them, it was a gateway to clarity. They knew that no single moment of success defines us, and that every moment is an opportunity to practice virtue, to learn, to evolve. A humble person knows that their value isn't dictated by praise or popularity, but by their internal compass, by how they choose to act, how they treat others, and how they handle failure. And ironically, the more grounded you are, the more life seems to give. Those who lift others up are often lifted themselves, not because they seek reward, but because the energy they offer circulates back, often in ways we never see coming. You've likely felt this yourself. The most sincere people, the ones who give without expecting anything, seem to attract moments of grace, a helping hand, an unexpected gift, or just the warmth of mutual respect. That's not magic. It's alignment. Humility allows us to stay open, especially in hard times. It helps us adapt, to see doors others miss. And when you lift others, you don't fall. When you admit your flaws, you grow faster than those who hide behind a mask of perfection. Some of the world's most powerful individuals have said very little about their own greatness. Why? Because they didn't need to. Their lives spoke for them. Their impact wasn't measured in self-promotion, but in self-possession. On the other hand, those most obsessed with appearances often collapse under the weight of criticism. Their sense of self is too fragile, because it was built on sand, not on substance. But humility? That's bedrock. It gives us resilience that doesn't depend on applause. It allows us to endure, to stay upright, even when the winds of judgment blow strong. The world has a quiet way of recognizing those who act with integrity, who give more than they take, who stay curious and kind. This doesn't mean you need to be passive. It doesn't mean you stop speaking or striving. It means you stop chasing approval and start anchoring yourself in values. It's the quiet confidence that your worth doesn't need to be proven. It just is. And when you embrace humility, you begin to connect more deeply with people, with purpose, with peace. You begin to see the beauty in small gestures, the richness in every conversation, and the value in every lesson. The humble mind is never closed. It's always learning, always listening, always willing to be surprised. So, act as if you are always a student, because you are. Ask questions, even when you think you know the answer. Challenge your assumptions. Speak less. Listen more. Socrates, Da Vinci, Epictetus, none of them thought they knew it all. That's why they became great. The moment you think you've arrived, you begin to decline. The moment you believe you have all the answers, you stop growing. Give without needing thanks. Help without waiting for applause. Let kindness be its own reward. Because sometimes, the greatest gifts don't come wrapped in praise. They arrive quietly, in a moment of peace, an opportunity you didn't expect, a sense of meaning that lingers long after the applause fades. In the Stoic tradition, virtue is not a performance. It's not about how others see you. It's about how you live when no one's watching. And the humble life, lived with intention and grace, becomes its own kind of legacy, not loud, not flashy, but deeply, powerfully unforgettable. Part 3. The quiet power of silence and the enduring strength of perseverance. So many of us are taught to measure the value of what we give by what we receive, but the Stoics saw it differently. They urged us to act with virtue, regardless of the outcome. That's why when you offer kindness, don't count on immediate returns. Just trust that its echoes will return to you, not always in obvious ways, not always right away, but often in the most unexpected moments, just when you need them most. A gesture you made years ago, a word you spoke in passing, these can come back around like a gentle wind that lifts you when you're weary. The Stoics also taught a principle that feels especially rare today: the practice of silence. In an age addicted to noise, distraction, and instant opinions, choosing silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's power. True silence is a posture of strength. When you're silent, you're not disengaged. You're observing, you're understanding, you're choosing to listen before reacting. In doing so, you gain something that impulsive speakers often lose: clarity. Because when you listen more, you learn more. You start to hear beyond the word sketching, the hesitation in someone's tone, the subtext in a conversation, the truth beneath the noise. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Never be so attached to your own opinions that you resent being corrected." Silence creates space for that correction, for growth, reflection, and better choices. You begin to realize that not every disagreement needs a reply, not every insult needs a comeback. Some conflicts resolve on their own if you simply don't feed them. Think back. Have there been times in your life when your silence brought peace instead of escalation? When your pause allowed a truth to surface, an opportunity to appear, a moment to pass without damage? Silence doesn't mean avoidance, it means discernment. It means knowing when your words would add value and when they would only stir more chaos. And when the time does come to speak, you speak with intention. Your words are not scattered. They are precise, grounded, necessary. Because you've chosen them not out of habit, not out of ego, but out of understanding. And so, from this place of silence, we arrive at one of the Stoics' most essential virtues: patience. Because life, inevitably, will test you. The Stoics never promised an easy path. In fact, they warned that even the most virtuous souls would meet hardship. Struggle is not a detour, it is the path. Seneca said it clearly: "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor strengthens the body." Hardship, then, is not something to avoid. It's something to embrace. Every setback, every delay, every frustration, it is sculpting you, testing you, teaching you. And if you persist, you'll find that you emerge not weaker but stronger, not bitter but wiser. You see, real faith is not blind optimism. It's not naive hope. It is the quiet conviction that no matter how long the night, morning will come, that the sun will rise again, that as long as you continue moving forward, step by steady step, you will get through. Even when the path disappears in fog, even when you're walking through the valley with no clear end in sight, faith tells you, keep going. Faith isn't passive. It's not sitting and waiting. It's an active choice to believe in the process, to trust the journey, even when the outcome is unclear. It's knowing that the most important growth often happens in the dark. Before we see the branch, the roots must grow deep. Before we see the light, we must withstand the pressure. If you're in a difficult season, now if the road feels long and the weight feels heavy, remind yourself, this is not the end. This is the training ground. Every obstacle carries with it the potential for transformation. And the Stoics knew this well. We are never truly defeated unless we surrender. So keep walking, keep breathing, keep showing up for yourself. Because even if you cannot yet see the destination, the next right step will reveal itself. And that's all you ever need to take just the next right step. Chapter 4. The power of faith in shaping reality. Progress, no matter how slow, is still progress. Let those words sink in. Because in a world constantly urging us to rush, to leap, to achieve instantly, the Stoics offer a quieter, more grounded truth-zone that reminds us that forward motion, however small, still matters. And in this patient progression, another force begins to take root, a force we often misunderstand or overlook. That force is faith. Now, this isn't blind optimism, nor is it wishful thinking. Faith, in the Stoic sense, is active. It's a conscious trust in the unfolding of life. It's the courage to believe that while we may not see the whole path right now, we are always being led somewhere meaningful. If you take a step back and observe your own life, Haven't there been moments where you resisted change only to look back later and realize that very shift brought you closer to where you needed to be? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This isn't just poetess, it's practical, because what we feed our minds with, we experience. If we fill our mental space with fear, doubt, and frustration, the world begins to reflect that turmoil. But if we begin each day by nurturing faith, even in the smallest of ways, we plant seeds that reshape how we respond to life. This kind of faith doesn't expect life to follow a perfect script. Instead, it trusts in the natural rhythm of existence. It believes that even amidst uncertainty or difficulty, something greater is quietly unfolding. And crucially, it reminds us to return to what we can control: our thoughts, our actions, our character. Seneca taught that true power lies in choosing your perspective. Faith is that choice. It's the steady hand that calms your inner storm. It doesn't demand instant results. It doesn't cling to timing. It knows that just like the tide, like the seasons, everything arrives when it's meant to, a moment sooner, not a moment too late. Can you imagine what would change in your life if you simply trusted the timing? If you stopped trying to force the fruit before its season? Faith teaches patience. It teaches humility. Just like a tree doesn't sprout overnight, your growth, real, lasting growth, requires time. And that time is not wasted. It's sacred. Faith also whispers this powerful reminder: you are stronger than your fear. Seneca said, "The mind that is anxious about the future is miserable." But when you choose to believe in your own resilience, that anxiety begins to lose its grip. Because faith isn't just about trusting life. It's about trusting yourself. Even when the way forward is hidden, you can move with clarity, knowing that your inner compass is steady. What if the pain you're feeling now is shaping you for something you're not yet ready to see? What if everything is unfolding, not to break you, but to build you? You see, when we move with faith, we don't ignore life's challenges. We meet them with a quiet strength. We remind ourselves that while the path may twist and turn, we are capable of walking it. And even if we don't understand the lesson right now, one day, we will. So let's walk forward, not blindly, but with eyes wide open. With the kind of faith that isn't shaken by setbacks, but shaped by them. With the kind of trust that steadies the heart, even when the world feels uncertain. Let faith become your discipline. Monitor your thoughts. Notice when doubt sneaks in and challenge it with a better question. Instead of, "What if this doesn't work?" Ask, "What if this is exactly what I need to grow?" That one question changes everything. Let go of the need to control the outcome. Focus on showing up. Act with intention, and then release the result. Because what's meant for you will never miss you. Not when you're moving with purpose. And finally, create a daily ritual. A mantra. A reminder. Something simple, yet powerful, like, "Everything is unfolding for my highest good." Repeat it. Breathe into it. Let it shape your outlook. Because in the end, faith isn't just something you believe, it's how you live. And once you begin to live from that place, stress starts to fade, doubt begins to quiet, and what's left is peace. Chapter 5. Embracing Uncertainty. One of the greatest sources of stress and anxiety in modern life isn't pain, loss, or even failure, it's the unknown. The future looms ahead like a misty road with no map, and our desire for certainty makes us grasp for control where none truly exists. But the Stoics offer us a radical shift in perspective. They remind us that resisting uncertainty only deepens our suffering. Instead of demanding the world conform to our plans, Epictetus advises, "Do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well." So what if we saw uncertainty not as a threat, but as a field of possibility. What if we stopped wrestling with the unknown and began dancing with it instead? Within uncertainty lies the birthplace of change, of transformation, of strength we didn't know we had. Think about it. How many moments in your life that didn't go as planned actually led to something unexpectedly good? Consider a time when something went wrong. A lost job, a breakup, a failed opportunity only to open the door to something better. Those disruptions didn't break you. They redirected you. The Stoics understood this. They didn't seek safety and certainty. They sought wisdom in reality. Uncertainty, then, is not the enemy. It's the teacher. It stretches us, challenges us, invites us beyond our comfort zones. It demands creativity. It demands courage. And in that discomfort, something powerful grows: resilience. Because if life were predictable, if every outcome was written in advance, where would growth come from? What would we learn? What would inspire us to innovate, to evolve, to reach beyond the familiar? History's most extraordinary individuals weren't those who controlled the future. They were those who stepped into it boldly, with curiosity and grit. They faced the unknown not with fear, but with faith in their capacity to adapt. That's what Stoicism calls us to: not passive acceptance, but proactive courage. And the more we lean into uncertainty, the more we find our peace. Not the peace of having all the answers, but the peace of no longer needing them. We move with life rather than resisting it. We stop fearing the waves and start learning to sail. Imagine standing at the edge of an ocean. You can't see the other side. The waters are vast, maybe even intimidating. But you have a choice: stay frozen on the shore or step into the boat. The winds may not be in your control, but your response is. And that's what the Stoics teach. Trust the wind, trust your oars, and trust your direction will become clear. Because the unknown is only frightening when we fight it. When we welcome it as a guide, not a threat, we unlock a deep well of calm. Life's greatest adventures often begin when plans fall apart. But here's the truth: it's not just the unknown itself that causes distress. It's how we perceive it. If we see uncertainty as danger, we shrink in fear. But if we see it as potential, we open ourselves to discovery. So what if we reframed it all? What if we began telling ourselves, this isn't chaos, this is opportunity in disguise. Every challenge becomes a doorway, every setback a redirection. Life, after all, unfolds in moments, not in perfect blueprints. The Stoics remind us that our experience is shaped not by what happens, but by how we meet what happens. When we meet the moment with openness, it becomes a friend, not a foe. And at the core of this mindset is trust. Trust in the process. Trust in nature. Trust in ourselves. Look around you. Rivers don't resist their course. They flow. Seasons don't argue with change. They transition in harmony. So why should we, who are part of this same nature, believe we must fight what unfolds? The more we surrender our illusion of control, the more empowered we become. We stop forcing outcomes and start living fully. We begin to notice the miracles that exist in every twist of fate, not because they were planned, but because they were embraced. The Stoics invite us to say, this is not how I imagined it, but maybe it's better. And that's not weakness. That's strength. That's the courage to see possibility where others see loss. Let go of perfectionism. Let go of the false promise of control. Growth does not happen in predictability. It happens in unpredictability. And that's the gift. So, how do we actually live this way? We begin with presence. Anxiety about the future thrives when we ignore the now. Our minds spiral into what-ifs and maybe-sos, fantasies of failure that haven't even happened. We abandon the moment we're in, which is the only place we actually have power. So come back, breathe. Feel your feet on the ground. Listen to the rhythm of your breath. Notice the sounds, the sensations, the details of now. Because this moment is the only place where life truly unfolds. Do not let imagined tomorrows rob you of real joy today. The more you root yourself in the present, the less power fear holds. And when your mind wanders, gently bring it back. Remind yourself, this moment is real. This is where I act. This is where I live. Because life isn't a future plan. It's not a checklist or a forecast. It's this breath, this word, this choice. And the Stoics knew that. That's why they trained their minds not to predict life, but to meet it with clarity. So when the future feels heavy, remind yourself, I don't need all the answers. I just need to meet this moment well. Part 6. The Stoic Mindset in Adversity. There's a quiet strength in those who no longer flinch at the storms of life. The kind of strength that doesn't come from avoiding hardship, but from walking straight into it, eyes wide open, and choosing to endure with purpose. The Stoics never promised that life would be smooth or kind. In fact, they expected resistance. And not just that, they welcomed it. Why? Because they saw adversity not as a punishment, but as a chance to become something more. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." These aren't just poetic words, they are a reminder that every struggle is a sculptor, chiseling away at who we think we are, until what remains is refined, resilient, and real. Just as the blade sharpens in fire, so too does the soul strengthen in difficulty. What if instead of fearing friction, we began to see it as an invitation? An invitation to grow deeper, think sharper, and live with greater intention. Hardship doesn't steal our power, it reveals it. And when we meet challenges with poise, we build a quiet confidence, one that doesn't need to shout. Each test becomes proof that we are not easily broken. Consider this. Every gust of wind makes a tree's roots grow deeper. It doesn't resist the wind with stubbornness, but bends with grace, returning upright when the storm has passed. That's resilience. That's Stoicism in motion. You bend, but you don't break. You endure, and in enduring, you evolve. When the world feels heavy, it's tempting to wish for ease, for a path free of pain. But ease doesn't create depth. Comfort doesn't forge character. And smooth roads rarely lead to meaningful destinations. It's through challenge, real gritty challenge, that we uncover the vast reserves of strength already within us. Struggle reveals who we are, and more importantly, who we could become. A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, and a life without resistance never formed a wise mind. Every hardship carries a lesson. Every moment of pain offers a mirror. The Stoics taught that suffering isn't the enemy. It's the teacher we didn't ask for, but deeply need. Pain strips away the superficial and brings us back to what matters. It's easy to admire wisdom in hindsight, but it's forged in the fire of our most difficult days. So when we are tested, not just lightly, but deeply, we get to choose. Crumble under the weight or rise above it. And in that choice, we grow. We grow not despite the pain, but because of it. Think about the last time you struggled. Not just a small inconvenience, but a real soul-level challenge. And now, look at where you are. You're still here. Maybe bruised, maybe tired, but here. That alone speaks volumes. Struggles force us to slow down, to reflect, to ask hard questions. And in that discomfort, we discover new tools, new strength, new clarity. That's why the Stoics embraced hardship as an essential part of the path. They didn't seek it out recklessly, but they welcomed it when it came, because they knew it was shaping something inside them that ease never could. If you've ever stood at the edge of what felt like failure, only to push forward and find success, then you know this is true. Pain isn't just a pit, it's a passage. It teaches you patience when you're stuck in uncertainty. It builds resilience when you get knocked down and have to find your footing again. It offers wisdom when you're forced to reflect on choices and make better ones next time. Those who endure evolve. The difference between someone who thrives and someone who breaks down isn't the presence or absence of struggle. It's how they respond to it. It's how they interpret it, and whether they choose to find meaning in the mess. Some of the most extraordinary people in history, from thinkers to leaders, from artists to activists, all have something in common. Their lives weren't easy, but their mindset was strong. They chose to keep moving forward when others would have folded, and in doing so, they carved paths through the darkness that others could follow. They saw adversity not as a wall, but as a door. Not as the end, but as the beginning of a transformation. When you face difficulty, you can either see it as the thing that breaks you or the thing that builds you. The Stoics would urge you to choose the second. So, how do we do that in practical terms? Start with small routines. When chaos swirls, return to simple habits: morning reflection, quiet journaling, a walk outdoors. These aren't distractions, they're anchors. They remind you of your agency. They restore a sense of control. Structure brings clarity, and clarity invites peace. It doesn't take grand gestures, just consistency. A little discipline, practiced daily, builds a fortress of inner calm. Think of it like this. Every time you breathe intentionally, every time you reflect instead of react, every time you step outside and reconnect with the present, you're not just coping, you're training. You're conditioning your mind to respond with wisdom, not panic. And when storms return, as they always do, you'll already have the tools. You'll already know your strength. Now, look back at the trials you've faced, the moments when it all felt like too much, and yet here you are, stronger, smarter, still standing. You've proven your resilience already. This isn't theory, it's evidence. There were times you felt lost, overwhelmed, like there was no way through, but you made it. Maybe not the way you expected, maybe not with everything intact, but you moved forward. And that matters more than perfection ever could. So, give yourself credit. Recognize your evolution. Remember that growth often happens in the background, silently, steadily, like roots stretching deeper beneath the soil during a storm. You don't have to see it to know it's happening. You don't have to feel it every moment. But it's there, quietly making you stronger. Every hardship you've survived is now part of your story. And your story, if you let, it can inspire others. It can serve as proof that strength is not a trait you're born with. It's a choice you make, again and again. And it starts with reframing how you see struggle. It's not the enemy, it's the invitation. Part 7. Chapter 7. The Law of Giving and Receiving. Carry this understanding deep within you that true strength lies not in avoiding hardship, but in rising again every time we fall. Let this be your quiet power, a whisper of resilience, reminding you that your past battles, your quiet suffering, and the storms you've endured have not shattered you. They have forged something within you. Every scar has been a mark of becoming, not breaking. And so we arrive at one of the most beautiful truths the Stoics ever embraced: the law of giving and receiving. Not as a mystical karma, but as a practical, lived experience. They understood something simple, yet profound. When you put goodwill into the world, it has a way of coming back. When you offer kindness, kindness makes its way back to your door. When you act with integrity, trust begins to take root. This exchange, this energetic reciprocity, is the very fabric of life. It's not about wealth, status, or possession. It's not about accumulating more. Life, at its core, is movement. It's a flow, an ongoing circulation of presence, energy, intention, Just as a river gives and nourishes as it moves, so too do we when we release and share what we have. The moment we hoard our time, our resources, even our affection, we begin to stagnate. But when we give freely, without expecting anything in return, something shifts. We align ourselves with the current of life itself. Like the river, we nourish everything around us, and in doing so, we are nourished. And it's not just about giving money or material things. It's about sharing knowledge, lending time, offering encouragement, a mentor giving wisdom to a student, a friend offering presence during a hard time. These acts don't drain us, they deepen us. They connect us to something greater than ourselves. Those who give freely often discover they are never truly lacking. Why? Because giving is generative. It multiplies meaning, expands perspective, and brings a sense of fulfillment that no transaction could ever provide. Think of the great teachers and leaders throughout history. What made them great was not how much they had, but how freely they gave. And in that act of sharing, they became more. When you teach someone, you learn twice. When you support someone, you often find yourself rising too. The Stoics knew this well. They believed that a meaningful life is not measured by what you keep, but by what you're willing to give away. Now, generosity, as they practiced it, wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices. It was about constancy, about presence, about doing small things with great care. A kind word, a moment of understanding, a simple act of showing up. Even the smallest offerings can ripple in ways you may never witness. When you uplift others, you amplify a wave of compassion that returns, often in unexpected form. And the more selflessly we give, the more aligned we become with the essence of human dignity and harmony. But giving also teaches us humility. It reminds us that we are not above or beyond one another, that we are intertwined. To help another is to acknowledge that someday you may need help too, and that needing help doesn't diminish you. It humanizes you. It binds us in mutual strength. The world works best not through competition, but through collaboration. The more we pour into others, the stronger the foundation of our shared humanity becomes. Each gesture, each offering, contributes to something far greater than we can calculate. It's a legacy we build in real time. A truly generous heart doesn't wait for ease or convenience. It gives, even when it's hard, because that's when it matters most. Real generosity is not a transaction, it's a quiet act of faith. A belief that when you give with intention, something good will return. Not always immediately, not always visibly, but always meaningfully. The Stoics taught us that nature thrives on cycles. The same is true for the human soul. When generosity flows, we come alive. When it stalls, we wither. But even in our hardest times, a small gesture, a smile, a hand, a kind silence can shift the weight of the world for someone else. In that moment, both the giver and the receiver are transformed. Stress dissolves. Depression loses its grip. Why? Because generosity reconnects us to meaning, to hope, to each other. And remember this, the greatest gifts often go unseen. The influence we spark in others, the quiet relief we offer, the example we set. These echoes of impact may never earn applause, but they change lives. They reach further than we know. Let this be your practice, not a task to be completed, but a way of moving through the world, a way of choosing peace, not pressure, connection, not control, and fulfillment not through getting more, but through becoming more. A single act of kindness is never just a moment. It's a spark that can ignite a chain reaction far beyond your sight, touching the lives of people you may never even meet. In the Stoic view, generosity isn't just something we do to become part of who we are. It's not merely a good deed. It's a ripple through time, a legacy that lives on long after the act is done. One generous choice has the power to elevate not just your own spirit, but the hearts of those around you. When we approach life with an open hand rather than a clenched fist, we allow blessings to flow both in and out. Generosity is energy, it's movement, and that movement expands far beyond our understanding. The Stoics believed that by giving freely, with sincerity, without needing anything in return, we actually unlock the greatest reward, inner abundance. The more we give, the more we grow not in possessions, but in peace. This is the paradox of generosity. The less we hoard, the more we receive. Not always in ways we expect, but in ways we most deeply need. The Stoic path reminds us that the universe does not operate on cold transactions, but on intention, authenticity, and goodwill. When we extend kindness, wisdom, or support, we deepen our connection with the human family and we affirm to ourselves that we are not alone. One kind word, one helping hand, one quiet act of giving, each of these can plant seeds of hope in someone else's life, and often, we'll never see the bloom, but that's not the point. The act itself is enough. The gesture lives on in waves, circling back to us in ways we may not predict but can always trust. The Stoics saw generosity not as sacrifice, but as privilege. A privilege to contribute to the greater harmony of the world. A privilege to align our values with our actions. When we give without expectation, we also release ourselves from the chains of neediness. We step out of scarcity and into flow. And from there, we naturally open the door to gratitude. Gratitude to the Stoics was not a momentary feeling but a daily practice, a way of viewing the world that turns every breath, every small blessing, every moment of quiet into a miracle. When we live from a place of appreciation, anxiety begins to dissolve. Why? Because gratitude roots us firmly in what we have, not in what we lack. Have you ever stopped to thank the silence, the sunlight, a stranger's smile? These are not small things. These are the anchors of a steady spirit. The more you honor them, the more your awareness grows. The more your awareness grows, the less space there is for despair to take hold. And it doesn't end there. As the Stoics knew well, gratitude transforms perception. It shifts us from dwelling on what's missing to celebrating what's present. This shift changes not just our mindset, but our reality. We stop chasing, and we begin living, fully, calmly, deeply. Even in hardship, the grateful mind sees value. Even in pain, it searches for insight. This doesn't make suffering vanish, but it transforms it. Gratitude turns endurance into wisdom, difficulty into meaning. It gives us the strength to carry on not bitterly, but with purpose. And then, naturally, beautifully, we begin to teach. Not by preaching, but by example. The Stoics believed that sharing wisdom is both a responsibility and a privilege. When we pass on what we've learned, we don't just help others, we deepen our own understanding. In explaining a lesson, we absorb it more fully. In teaching with compassion, we develop patience, clarity, humility. Teaching becomes another form of giving. And like all true giving, it multiplies, it spreads. One lesson shared can spark another person's transformation. One insight passed on can ripple through generations. The Stoics would call this living in accordance with nature, because nature is always in motion, always evolving, always contributing. So ask yourself, what will you give? What wisdom will you share? What kind word will you speak today? Because every small offering of the heart creates momentum. And in the end, as the Stoics remind us, life is always in motion. The river flows, whether we paddle with fear or with trust. But when we choose to trust, when we believe that everything will come in time, we reclaim our peace. We let go of what we cannot control, and we plant our feet in the only place we ever truly stand, the present. Breathe deeply, give freely, and trust the path beneath your feet. Trust the flow, embrace the timing. There's a quiet wisdom in learning how to trust the process, not just when life is flowing easily, but especially when everything feels uncertain. When you feel like you're walking blind into fog, unsure of where you're going or how long the storm will last, the Stoics remind us of a deeper truth. What if peace doesn't come from control, but from surrendering control? What if real power lies not in bending life to our will, but in meeting each moment with presence, with faith instead of fear? You see, doubt whispers that you're falling behind, that you need to force something, fix something, make it happen faster. But trust says, pause, breathe, step forward with grace, not panic. The Stoics didn't believe in passivity, but they also didn't chase the illusion of total control. They taught us to accept what we cannot change, and to act with conviction where we can. The space between those two is where serenity begins. The great challenges we face, they're not here to break us. They're here to reveal us, to refine our patience, to stretch our character, to show us just how resilient we really are when we stop resisting what is and start embracing what can be. So take a moment. Ask yourself, what outcome are you trying so hard to force? What would happen if you loosened your grip even just a little? Trust is not weakness. It is a deep, courageous strength. And it doesn't mean sitting idle. It means showing up fully, taking meaningful action and then releasing attachment to the result. When you adopt this way of thinking, life stops feeling like a frantic race. Instead, it becomes a rhythm, a dance between effort and ease. And the beauty? Even the things that seem delayed, denied, or disrupted often turn out to be blessings disguised in strange timing. The Stoics would say, the obstacle becomes the way, not by chance, but by how you meet it. So let go of the need to predict or control everything. Trust that the right people, the right moments, and the right doors will arrive not on your schedule, but on their own. And when they do, you'll be ready. Not because you forced them, but because you prepared. Faith is not something you wait to feel. It is something you practice. Like a muscle, it grows stronger each time you choose to believe in the process over panic, in resilience over resistance. Every time you decide to walk forward with a heart full of quiet trust, you're building a life that flows, not fights. So, here is your final invitation. Trust the flow, embrace the timing, surrender what you can't control, and act with purpose where you can. Everything meant for you is already making its way toward you. Just keep moving, keep breathing, and keep choosing trust daily. Because in the end, it's not about forcing outcomes. It's about becoming the kind of person who's ready when they arrive.